what I thought was going to happen was that you were going to be like completely out and not involved at all. And then I started having like that philosophical, like, why am I here? Why would I even be doing this?
Yeah.
And I realized through that like mentorship is incredibly important to me.
Question I got the other day from a husband and wife is, how many hours should we each treat clinically? And I was like, I don't care. I was like, we need to score touchdowns. I don't care if you pass or run. For both of you, there's no like, oh, he's in the clinic 12 and I'm like, is there any of that?
I'd say no. I think so.
So we're good.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, now we start looking at one person running meetings. They have to make the agenda, they have to gather the KPIs, they have to do all of that. They're set to do the weekly learning just because, again, it's like a role and responsibility. I want to give you the opportunity to have the leadership side of it, but from a business perspective, efficiency, it'd be better if one person, just like everyone has their part, but someone's in charge. Every single week, I set the meeting agenda, I do the research on it, I gather KPIs from people, I'm able to kind of get the meeting through. If people don't have their KPIs and numbers, that it's like, where are we with it? Making sure that the meetings are efficient. Are they on track, off track? If they're off track, how do we decide what we need to talk about? Doesn't mean that you don't meet beforehand, just means that one person is making the decisions, and it's like the head coach makes the decisions in the game.
What we're currently doing is like we generally talk about beforehand. It's been one person controlling really the pulse. Seems like
I want one person to control the pulse. Let's just say it's you're running the meeting. As an example, when I run the meeting, if I have to go talk about digital marketing, I don't know it. So I have to get a handle what's going on. From a weekly learning standpoint, it could be that your job is to assign it to somebody, or is to say like, you have this week for weekly learning, or that Justin's going to do it this time. But like, there's one person that's the quarterback. Who's going to quarterback the meeting? If you're on vacation, what does accountability mean?
accountability if I'm on vacation means that nothing should change.
Means that you are accountable for making sure that someone is in charge and that a meeting still happens and it happens efficiently. So if it's Ashdin, hey, I'm going to be away on April 24th. Can you host a meeting? Here's what needs to happen. Here's how it has to happen. If I find that the meeting doesn't happen and no one's in there confused, Kaylie, you are not allowed to say, well, I was on vacation.
Got it.
So like in Hannah's world, she's got the Marketing Monday call, she's got things that have to happen. And when she's not there, she has people that they have to make sure that it happens. I'm not gonna go to Matt if it doesn't happen. I'm going to Hannah, what the hell just happened? The one day, my post went up, but the next post didn't go up. We missed it for one day. I didn't go to Rachel, I didn't go to Hia. I texted Hannah, what the hell happened? Don't know, have to find out. But again, I don't go to Hia first, I went to Hannah, because that's her department. If the meeting is shit and you're not there, well, I wasn't there, what do you expect? It's like I expect that you make sure that it's taken care of. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Next thing, let's go run up the basic day-to-day in the office. Like if I walk in, it's dirty, it's just not where it's supposed to be. Stuff is in order, we run out of DV folders. I'm coming to somebody first before I lose it on everything. Who am I coming to?
I'll do it.
You're sure? Like why don't you want to go through all of it? Because we're gonna have,
Yeah.
you don't just have to pick it because.
Can we just go through all?
So we have that one. The next one is gonna be the hardest one. It's gonna be minor for now, I think, but as it'll become the issue going forward is who's in charge of people. The people that are on the team right now, they live in two worlds because like I hired them basically, but if we hire another person,
Sure.
when that person has an issue, payroll's off, they have a personal issue or they need time off, who are they gonna go to?
I honestly think it should be Ashdin.
Why?
I feel like you did such a good job with me, and like whenever I had something wrong, I think Ash is pretty level-headed, or at least you may not be right away in the moment, but you get there, and I think that you're fair. And I trust myself to be that way too. I just feel like you did so good with me when I ever had an issue with a patient, or like I knew I could always come to you for it, and it didn't seem to like stress you out, where I think it would kind of like stress me out.
The next step of that also, when we have to do hiring process, that's probably the thing I have to help you guys with the most. Who's going to be in charge of that process? Then when they get hired, onboarding, again, doesn't mean that you're doing everything. It's just like if this person isn't onboarded correctly and they don't know what they're doing, I'm saying, well, where did this go wrong?
Yeah.
Good. So we're clear on that. So Kaylie, you are marketing, and then you're going to be office, like just office stuff on top of, again, if we run out of DV folders, it's your fault, basically. I think that now we should just have a conversation about, as far as our communication, our communication, individually, separate, 2-to-1, that type of thing. What are our expectations with that? I'll just start throwing questions out. Number one, how often should we all three meet? Should I have one-to-ones with each of you? And I think an interesting question to ask is, how do we argue? How do we disagree? How do you guys solve disagreement? What needs to come to Justin? Who comes to Justin with it? Is it both of us together always? If someone has an issue that they can bring it about the other person, does it come to me first? Do you guys try to solve it with each other first? Again, that all sounds good until someone starts talking behind the other one's back. And in most situations, this is essentially the version of a relationship car crash.
I would say if we had a disagreement between each other, we probably want to solve it amongst each other before we even bring it up.
Okay, so let me ask you this. I've always said the biggest risk in this whole operation is the 2-year relationship. Where would it go wrong? What would happen? What does that look like?
I guess like if I start perceiving that I'm not like holding the lower end of the bargain, that's where I'd maybe start upset.
In what way? What would constitute not holding up the end of the bargain? So sales, we're not hitting the KPIs.
I feel like I'm getting mad at doing that. If we need to email Mike and then you're like not emailing Mike and like just on those levels, like just not doing like the basics things that we need, but not just like a little thing here and there. It's like
It would add up.
yeah, that's noticeably like a problem. One of the only other things is just like I think attitude is important to me, and if suddenly I see a change in that, I guess I'll be upset with that.
If one of you shows up and you know something's off with the other person, you guys let it go. Do you address it right there?
I
Equal
think we
space?
normally address
And then
it.
address it.
And then it just like if I know Ashton's having an off day, he like actually physically makes space with me and like moves away in front of the office, and I just kind of know, and then I'll normally start like poking him like later in the day.
For me, in that situation, I'm good with people whatever until it affects the business. That's when it crosses the line.
I think when we have a problem, our default is to 100% like we're figuring it out together.
Yeah.
And I think as a last resort, we want to involve you. And there's even specific times where you'll be like, oh, we should bring this up to Justin. And then I think we keep working on it.
On it, and then we don't need to.
And then eventually we don't even need to.
I think it's also us trying to figure out what we actually need to bring to you too.
So
I think in the beginning, in the last couple of months, it was like almost like we just needed permission to do certain things. And now that we know like where you're at on it, like for example, like the refunds, based on how we handled some refunds then, like I literally was like, I didn't want to ask you about the refund because I was like afraid what was going to happen. And now you're like, oh, well, like, let's just do it. Let's not spend the time worrying about it. That is like, okay, now I know.
Right.
I don't need to come to you with that.
By the book, if you guys can do something or fix something for 500 or less,
Yeah.
like the number more than that, we should probably talk about it. I guess from my perspective, then you have to help coach me on where is that I can help you guys going forward. What is it that would be valuable? What is it that will piss you guys off that I don't do? Where do you see me being valuable to you, or where do you see me getting to the point where you're like, this is bullshit, like we don't need them anymore?
I feel like in general, like whenever we have an idea and we bring it to you, we generally end up getting like just like the depth of it just like most
Expands.
Yeah, like so much more than the way we were thinking about it.
Because you see it differently. And so some of the stuff that we don't see, that's beneficial.
Sometimes I just want to bring stuff to you because of the conversation that comes out of it, not because I really want anything out of it. If that makes sense. I just know that if we talk about like the marketing plan, I know that we're going to end up at a good conversation, even if I don't know what I want out of the conversation.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I think, from my perspective on it, looking back of where I got stuck, but where I lose energy or interest is when I think I'm not clear on like where we're going. Or if I perceive that someone wants one thing but isn't willing to do the stuff to get there, that's when I'm just like, then we just sort of sit. So long as I'm clear, like if what we're doing and the plan is in place to get what you guys want, we can have conversations like you said because you want to learn more. I'm not going to push the needle or push the envelope just to do it, just to make myself feel useful. But the thing for me, I need to be just clear on where you guys want to grow and what you want to do, because that helps me to sort of direct the conversation. I know early on when you started, there was probably some hesitation on my level of involvement and like where I was going to be, if I was going to be all in this capacity. Yes? Yeah, I would agree. You came in at a time where we were in that position. There was a disconnect, and I was like...
September was when things started to like brew. Again, I was like unclear of what exactly this is going to look like. Probably making judgment calls too early. But what I realized, what I thought was going to happen was that you were going to be like completely out and not involved at all. And then I started having like that philosophical, like, why am I here? Why would I even be doing this?
Yeah.
And I realized through that like mentorship is incredibly important to me. Until we like had that conversation and you being like, no bitch, like I'm gonna be in like
Yeah.
even more. I was like,
yeah.
oh, like that like
Changed it.
it literally like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
180. I was like, oh, this
Yeah.
is like completely different
Yeah.
than what I was expecting.
Yeah.
That caused just in myself going backwards, I realized that it's important to me that mentorship is still important to me.
For me, where I look at you guys over time and becomes not less mentorship, but more of partnership. My job is to now take all the things that I'm doing always to funnel it down and teach the lessons that I'm learning in observation and be able to follow it to you. And so, you know, I always think, pick a number. If I'm spending 40 grand on my education, like how can I give you guys 40 grand of education each that you don't have to pay for?